Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz composer and music supervisor Joshua Green. Right out of New Jersey, he is promoting his newest 2017 CD, Telepath and Bop, with his Cyborg Orchestra. He has studied with very prominent composers and musicians over the years like Ira Newborn, and he has had song placements and full licensing negotiations for commercials, television, and theatrical releases with folks like Martin Scorsese. His clients have also been Google, A&E, ABC, and the Discovery Channel. He has been recognized with the Herb Alpert Jazz Composer Award, along with many others. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Thanks for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm going to dive right into your album here. I get a lot of these in the mail, and when I saw this one with the green alien on the actual disc, and just
yeah.
kind of the fun orchestration. It's a great album, and I want to ask you, what went into this album? What was your concept, and how do you feel about it now that it's out?
Oh, man. I mean, this was such a long time in the making. So the concept, I grew up as a jazz guy. I'm a sax player. And then for a while, I kind of shifted gears and got into contemporary classical music. And I was writing a lot of string quartets and chamber works. Around 2007, right? I was in Vienna studying, actually. And I had gotten wind about Michael Brecker's death, who was like such an idol of mine. I just adored his playing, and I listened to Now You See It, Now You Don't, like on loop constantly. And so when he passed away, that was just like a huge shock to me, and it kind of brought me back to jazz again. And I wanted to find a way to start writing jazz music with contemporary classical influence. And so that's sort of where all of this stemmed from. And that's kind of what went into each piece. It was approaching it with the concept of the lineage of jazz orchestra through the lens of, Ligeti and Penderecki and those likes. But yeah, now that the album is out, I'm so happy with it. It's getting a lot of great feedback. People seem to be really enjoying it. And, hopefully it'll have a nice long life and will lead us into a second album in the coming years.
Well, you're doing pretty good for yourself for a nice long life in music. You have so much going on with all of the orchestration and composing you're doing for Google, A&E, Fox. I mean, you got your list of clientele and what you're doing is huge. From what I understand from musicians, especially in the jazz world where the profits are paltry, this seems to be the avenue to go. Was this kind of a premeditated thing? Was it luck? How did you get to this point where a lot of people in the world are hearing your music?
That's a good question. I mean, it was just one thing seems to lead to another, I suppose. I got my start as more of a film and TV composer and orchestrator, working with Howard Shore on The Hobbit and Martin Scorsese's Hugo, and I really learned the ropes there, and had a lot of great experience, and that just kind of opened up a lot of doors for me, and I started meeting a lot of bigger clients, really stemming out, taking everything that came my way, and I've been really fortunate to have a great career, and this jazz orchestra is kind of a nice balance for me because during the day I'm working on a lot of reality TV, Real Housewives of New Jersey and Hell's Kitchen and Pawn Stars, and these shows are great and there's so much variety, and so it's nice to come home and relax and start looking at my own works and some of that more avant-garde as well.
The one thing that's interesting, too, about a musician is it seems as though getting a degree is kind of getting street credit and kind of getting yourself out there and getting ready for the world. But it seems like maybe your education, your bachelor's and master's really groomed you for this work that you're doing for orchestration and composing.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly get that foundation. I'm a strong believer in going to college and higher education. I learned the ropes. I learned that foundation of theory and harmony and those oral skills. And it really gives you the time to wood shop and really, hone your skills. And also, I think even more importantly is the networking that comes out of it. I mean, the students that you're moving up the ranks with and that you're going to class with every day, they're all doing the same thing now. And so you're out there in the world and, you have this great connection and this great network of people that, everyone's working hard and you're all kind of out there doing it together. So higher education certainly gives you a lot of experience, a lot of background, and a lot of just people to work with and collaborate with, moving forward.
So let's get back to the beginnings of your life, how all of this started for you. Where were you born and raised, and what was it about your upbringing that gave you this love of jazz?
Oh, man, that's actually like a tough question. I am originally from the town of Marlton, New Jersey. It's like about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia. And jazz kind of came to me. My grandfather was a Latin jazz trumpet player who was always a really big influence on me. And so having him in my life, it was sort of always I always just knew I was going to play an instrument. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but having him there in my life, I just knew that was always going to be a part of my life. And my parents enjoyed jazz. My dad introduced me to, Stanley Turrentine back in the day and Dave Brubeck and Phil Woods. And those were like the first few guys I started listening to. And of course, having Philadelphia right there, I grew up in high school going in and checking out all the jazz clubs and getting to know all the guys at University of the Arts, and I started taking lessons with a lot of them, like Ron Kerber and Chris Farr and Bill Garton, and all these guys are just staples of the Philadelphia scene, like in the 90s. So that's really where all of this kind of stemmed from.
So you always knew you were going to get into music.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any backup plan, or was it just a foregone conclusion that music was going to be your life?
Oh, yeah. Music was always going to be my life. It was sort of ingrained in me very early on that if this is what I wanted, I could not have a fallback. If I ever had a fallback, then when it got tough, I was just going to fall back on it. And as long as I kept my eye on the prize and kept pushing, then I sort of knew like it's all going to work out. There was never a moment where I felt like it wasn't going to work out, and so I'm really fortunate, and I've been very persistent, and so not having something else to fall back on, and when things got tough, really pushed me to keep going.
You got albums that you're putting out on your own, and you've done a lot of orchestration and composing. How do you feel about your career up to this point? It seems as though there's a level of luck and charm and skill and hard work that's gone into it. How do you feel with the amalgamation of all of that right now in your life?
Oh, I couldn't be happier. I feel like I still have a long ways to go for sure. I still feel like I'm in the beginning of my career. I'm still pretty young, so I hope I have a long career ahead of me. I've got a lot more to write, a lot more to say, a lot more to do. But I couldn't be happier with the work that I've done so far and the people I've met and the ensembles I've gotten to work with. It's been such a pleasure.
You've won a lot of awards in your life. There's been a lot of different awards that you got. And I want to know this. I don't want to know which one was your favorite, but I want to know what award have you received that surprised you, that just kind of you found out you got it and you were like, wow, I didn't expect that.
Most recently, this past year was the Herb Alpert Jazz Composer Award from ASCAP, which was such an honor. That was really great to be honored by them. So yeah, I think that was one that I was just floored by when they gave me that call telling me that I had won that award. So
you talked about Herb Alpert. You talked about a lot of early musicians that you heard Stanley Turrentine getting introduced to. So let me ask you this, kind of in a fantastical way here. If you could hop into a time machine, you have the DeLorean in front of your house, you can punch in the digits and the date, where are you going to go? Who are you going to see live in the annals of jazz history?
Oh man, I don't even know. There's so many staples like throughout each decade. I feel like probably somewhere in like the late 50s, early 60s, where I could catch like Mingus and Gil Evans like right in their prime. Somewhere around there, like yeah, like right around 63 when you had like the individualism of Gil Evans came out, and when was it, like late 50s, mid late 50s, when Mingus came out with the Pithecanthropus erectus, which is like one of my favorite albums of all time. Yeah, I mean that's just, I think if I could be dropped in like 1955, I'd probably stay for a good 10 years, eat up all the jazz, and then come back.
It sounds like a perfect time period. I would love to do that. So that's beautiful. So let me ask you a generic question, but it packs a punch. Very simply, why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz? It's the something about the collaboration and the freedom. For me, I mean, classical music, I also enjoy writing, but it's very individualized, and there's a lot of writing by yourself, and when it's performed, it's very much about what the composer's intent is and how it should be performed. And for me, jazz is free, and it pulls all those restraints down, where I can still write very highly notated music, but then I can hand it off to these musicians and they just bring it to life. And there's just something about hearing someone take what I've written and do something else to it that I wasn't even expecting, that it just blows my mind every time I hear it.
Right on. So I noticed on the back of your CD that you didn't thank anybody. So let me ask you this. If this CD wrapped up your life of music up to this point, you know, all of the things that you've done in your life musically, and I had to ask you to kind of give me a handful of people that you would thank, who would you thank?
Well, I think the list would be extremely long, but I'm required to thank my mom first, of course, my wife, who's like been such an inspiration and a motivator for me, and my family in general, but just all these musicians that I've had the ability to work with. Todd Groves in New York City is just one of the most fantastic musicians on the planet. Is a reed doubler and has basically been there for like every jazz piece I've ever written. The guy is just a great individual. And I would just have to go through my entire band, I think, to thank each one of them. You know, Dan Block, Charles Pillow, Jay Hassler, Alan Ferber on trombone, who, by the way, like absolutely killed it the other night at National Sawdust. He brought down the roof. And we had John Lake, John Blevins, Chris Mish, Josh Bailey on drums, who's also fantastic, and Mike Verselli, Sungwon Kim on guitar, Will Holthauser. I mean, all these guys are so much responsible for this album as me, and they've just been fantastic.
Yeah, Alan Ferber, I've always really dug his music. He knows how to get in there and do it right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to bring everything down to this question. Everyone has a version of who you are, your family, your friends, your fans that buy your music, that watch you live, your clients. But who do you think you are? When you wake up and face the world and you do what you do, who do you think you are?
Oh, man, that is quite a question. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I think I'm a pretty laid-back guy. I can be pretty hard on myself as a composer, but you know, I just like to enjoy life, and I like to find like little quirks in life. And you know, a lot of my music, you know, I enjoy some of that more intellectual writing, but there's so much quirkiness in my writing as well, and I think a lot of it comes from sarcasm and the humor and all of that quirk that I just see walking down the streets of Manhattan. And so, I don't know, I guess that's me. I don't really know how else to describe myself.
I like that. That's the perfect answer. And it's funny because every time I ask that, or most of the time, I usually get, I don't know, and then I get the answer, and that's it. It's the answer. I don't know if there's any real, it's like eating fast food. It's like you know that you're going to get satisfied, but it won't be a filling meal. But after you answer it, I think it's like really fine cuisine. I think you nail it because you're just never quite sure. You're still in the middle of your life. How are you supposed to know? So,
yeah.
But at any rate, thank you for taking some time out for me today. I really dig the album. I'm going to spin it, and I'm sure with your body of work, I'm going to run into your music over and over again, probably without even knowing it. But probably now that I really know the way you do your jazz, I'll probably recognize it more. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your music. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New Jersey, Kansas City, LA, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Josh for his time and his stories and all that music with the Cyborgs. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.